It started out really like kind of like 3 or 4 of us in other places, and then after a while, all these young devotees from London started coming with like dozens of them. It just started to get really like. I couldn't keep that up. You don't know why I can. Yes, we need to ask for. We don't have many producers, not so many people in the entire temple. 5 or 6 people. Actually, really, this question. Oh, Hasi Grami, he's been in the Mississippi Pond for over a year, a couple of years. That's how you. Hasi Grami. No, you're talking about. What's his name? No, something. Yeah, no, Hasi Grami. He left a long time ago. He wasn't planning.
Well, no one comes to me. Now he just says go on, then they don't come back.
First we were talking about preaching.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari James Bad Paramahansa, Bhagavad-gita Ashtotar Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Dravida Acharya Ashtotar the Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktavrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Here, give me that book. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. What page are you on here? Text 3, 9-3. Page number. 3. 380. Okay. Okay, so did I do Om Namo? I didn't do. I just did that. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm spaced out. Okay. On this first day of November 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 9 entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, text number 3, page 380. Ashraddhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamang Nivartante Mityusang Saravartmani Ashraddhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mityusang Saravartmani Ashraddhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mityusang Saravartmani. Parashakti. Ashraddhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mityusang Saravartmani. Ashraddhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mityusang Saravartmani. Hare Krishna. Please have a seat. Well, the deities? Yeah, 8:15 for the deities. Ashraddhana, those who are faithless, Purushaha, such persons, Dharmasya, toward the process of religion, Asya, this, Parantapa, O killer of the enemies, Aprapya, without obtaining, Mam, me, Nivartante, come back, Mrityu, of death, Samsara, in material existence, Vartmani, on the path. Translation. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. Purport. The faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of Vedic literature, from great personalities still have no faith in God. They are hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, faith is a most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. That is called real faith. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 4.31.14, Yata taro mula nishechanena tripyanti tatskandha bhujopashakaha pranopaharaccha yatindriyanam tataiva sarvarhanamachyuteja. By giving water to the root of a tree, one satisfies its branches, twigs, and leaves, and by supplying food to the stomach, one satisfies all the senses of the body. Similarly, by engaging in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, one automatically satisfies all the demigods and all other living entities. Therefore, after reading the Bhagavad Gita, one should promptly come to the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. One should give up all other engagements and adopt the service of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, the personality of Godhead. If one is convinced of this philosophy of life, that is faith. Now, the development of that faith is the process of Krishna consciousness. There are three divisions of Krishna conscious men. In the third class are those who have no faith. Even if they are officially engaged in devotional service, they cannot achieve the highest perfectional stage. Most probably, they will slip after some time. They may become engaged, but because they haven't complete conviction and faith, it is very difficult for them to continue in Krishna consciousness. We have practical experience in discharging our missionary activity that some people come and apply themselves to Krishna consciousness with some hidden motive, and as soon as they are economically a little well situated, they give up this process and take to their old ways again. It is only by faith that one can advance in Krishna consciousness. As far as the development of faith is concerned, one who is well versed in the literatures of the devotional service and has attained the stage of firm faith is called a first-class person in Krishna consciousness. And in the second class are those who are not very advanced in understanding the devotional scriptures, but who automatically have firm faith that Krishna Bhakti, or service to Krishna, is the best course, and so in good faith have taken it up. Thus they are superior to the third class, who have neither perfect knowledge of the scriptures nor good faith, but by association and simplicity are trying to follow. The third class person in Krishna consciousness may fall down, but when one is in the second class, he does not fall down. And for the first class person in Krishna consciousness, there is no chance of falling down. One in the first class will surely make progress and achieve the result at the end. As far as the third class person in Krishna consciousness is concerned, although he has faith in the conviction and that devotional service to Krishna is very good, he has not yet gained adequate knowledge of Krishna through the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes these third-class persons in Krishna consciousness have some tendency toward karma yoga and jnana yoga, and sometimes they are disturbed. But as soon as the infection of karma yoga or jnana yoga is vanquished, they become second-class or first-class persons in Krishna consciousness. Faith in Krishna is also divided into three stages and described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. First-class attachment, second-class attachment, and third-class attachment are also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. Those who have no faith, even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it is simply eulogy, find the path very difficult, even if they are supposedly engaged in devotional service. For them, there is very little hope of gaining perfection. Thus, faith is very important in the discharge of devotional service. And I'm going to have to go in the back because there's no one else to do it. Sorry about that. I'm sorry? I noticed. The doors, these doors are both open. And all you've got is the curtain between them. Okay. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnanandana-shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Krishna, having described in the first two verses how confidential this knowledge is, and the wonders of it, it is the king of knowledge, it is the most confidential knowledge, it is very purifying, it is the supreme, it gives direct perception of God, pratyakshavagaman. It is a dharma, means that there's a process to it, and it is easily performed, and it is eternal. That's the second verse. And now he says what happens if, despite all of this, you still have no faith, then you have to suffer on the path of birth and death and samsara. And you don't attain Krishna. So how to attain this faith? Faith is, as Prabhupada mentions here, a foundation of our action in Krishna consciousness. Why? Because we can't see Krishna. We can't see. It's beyond, he's transcendental. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Yes. And we have darshan at 8:15. You know that? Okay. Please. Yeah. Yeah. Sit on this side, and you can sit with him on the ladies' side. Yeah, we try to maintain that. But we have books. We have many books. You know, help them get books. Get the books for them. All right. I guess we're okay. Yeah. Everyone can have a book. We're on page 380. 380. 380. Okay, so we're beginning chapter 9 here. In chapter 9, page 380, you can help him. And Krishna is talking about faith. Faith is very important in Krishna consciousness because, as I mentioned, Krishna is beyond the range of our perception at the moment. He is known as a hokshaja. And if the children, sometimes it's hard for them to concentrate. You have to take them out if they get too noisy or restless. Okay. So Krishna is known as Adhokshaja. Adhokshaja is a name for God, which means he who is beyond the range of material senses or mind. Akshaja is knowledge produced from the senses. Aksha is the eyes, but it stands for all the senses. And our normal knowledge that we get is scientific knowledge or knowledge produced from investigating this world and making conclusions. None of that can help us to see Krishna or even to understand he exists. And so in order to acquire faith, we need to come in touch with the faithful, someone who's truly faithful. I don't know if it's going to work with the children. There's nothing here to play with. Nothing. There's no playing. Yeah, one of you needs to take them out. Yeah, there's a whole house next door. And there we have all kinds of toys and everything you can play with over there. Yeah. Yeah, show them where it is and maybe set them up with the... It's right outside. It's practically... You can't miss it. Huh? Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 7:15. Okay. So, faith. So Krishna is saying in the third verse here, what happens if you can't develop faith? Ashradhana Purusha, those persons who have no faith in this king of knowledge and this wonderful process that Krishna is going to explain in this chapter, unfortunately, they cannot go back to Godhead, and they must suffer in samsara. And he makes, to make it very strong, he says, mrityu samsara, birth and death, birth and death. So here, Srila Prabhupada goes through in this purport describing different levels of faith. Because faith is something that can develop in the touch with the faithful, and in touch with Krishna consciousness. And it really develops by having enough faith to begin the process. Rupa Goswami has given us a nice progression from faith to love, Shraddha to Prema. And he starts out, Adau Shraddha. In the beginning there's faith. Then what happens? Tatak Sadhu Sangha. One comes into the association of devotees. And then, if one is fortunate, one gets inspired, has enough faith to begin the process, bhajana kriya, basically chanting Hare Krishna. There's no logic behind chanting Hare Krishna. There's no obvious reason why one should chant Hare Krishna. It doesn't, as you can see, it's just a waste of time. On a material plane, it doesn't make sense. But if you have enough faith, because you're contacted great realized sages who insist, yes, this is really the process of the age. You see, it says right here in the Upanishads, which it does. Then you begin chanting Hare Krishna. And as soon as you begin chanting, then Krishna takes over. Krishna actually, within the heart, gives you some realization which nourishes your faith. If someone tells me that, oh, it's such a wonderful place, SanDiego, I'm living in Montana or something. And you know, I'm doing fairly well in Montana. You know, I'm at home there. He says, yeah, but in SanDiego the weather is so great, you know, and the beach is right there, and you're just, you know, really close to Tijuana and whatever, and Disneyland is right up the street. And the person, you trust the person, and of course they bring back pictures, you know, videos, then your faith grows until you finally say, okay, let me visit at least. You see? And you visit and you say, oh, this is the place for me, and you do everything you can to move to SanDiego. So your faith grows when you get in touch with someone who you trust, and they provide some evidence for what they're trying to convince you of. Now, on the material plane, it can be very obvious, some pictures or something. But on the spiritual matters, it's not so obvious, because everything is beyond our range of direct perception. So that's why it requires some association, prolonged, in order to get that faith. So as soon as that faith is there and you associate more and you begin to practice, then your faith is nourished more by direct perception. And that's why Krishna says in the second verse here, Pratyakshaavagamam dharma. Pratyakshaavagamam means direct perception. So it's not all theoretical. It's not like some of the yogis or others say, you do all these difficult austerities and at the end you'll attain mukti. No, the idea is that even in this very lifetime you can experience so many nibbananas of Krishna consciousness, and even you can become liberated even in this lifetime. You can feel yourself detached from the pushes and pulls of the material energy. So how to develop this faith? Now, hearing is very important. Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, this verse here, spoken by Narada Muni, Prabhupada quotes, Yatata mula nishechanena. This is there's two analogies in there. One is that if you want to water a tree, you don't water each twig and leaf separately. That's silly. Everyone knows you water the root. And if you just water the root, all the branches and the twigs and the leaves and the fruits and flowers, they're nourished. Or if you're going to eat something, you put it in the stomach and all of the energy goes through all the limbs. Similarly, if you serve Krishna, then all of the devas and everything else is adjusted. You don't have to do anything else. It's not that you have to pick this deva, that god, this Prabhupada is describing what faith means. He's quoting from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Shraddha, it means faith, where your heart is, where your real belief is. Shraddha shabde vishwas kohe sudridha nishchoy Krishna bhakti korle sarva karma krita hoy. That's what Chaitanya is teaching to Sanatana Goswami, where he's describing the real nature of faith, and Prabhupada gives a little definition here. The word shabde in Bengali is an idiom that means this is the definition. So Shraddha is defined as vishwas kohe, very strong conviction. Sudridha nishchoy. Dhrida is strong, Sudrida is very strong. That what? That Krishna korle sarva karma krita krita hoy, that the activities in Krishna consciousness, chanting and hearing and serving and doing all the things that we're meant to do and avoiding the things we're meant to avoid. If I just do that, all of my real aspirations will be fulfilled. Now this brings up the idea of what are our genuine aspirations. We have our durashaya. Prahlad Maharaj says in the 7th chapter, 7th canto, he's preaching to his father. A very dramatic scene. A little 5-year-old boy, and his father's this huge, monstrous demon, and he's not afraid to tell him the truth, being truth to power. So first he says to his father, Matirna Krishne Padataksvatova, Mitobi Padita Grihavatanam. Those who are too much involved in materialistic life, whose senses are uncontrolled, they're entering further and further into darkness, and for them, they can't place their mind on Krishna. They don't become Krishna consciousness. They're too busy, punak punas charvata charvananam. Parashakti, you know what that means. Chewing the chewed, again and again. Punak punas charvata charvananam. So, in that mentality, then what are their aspirations? Because being a human being, a living entity, you have certain aspirations, especially a human being. So he says, the next verse, Nate vidu svartakatimi vishnum. Such persons have no idea that their sva-arta gatim, the real goal of their life, of what is valuable, this word sva-arta means the goal of the soul, not just of the body, is Vishnu, is Krishna. They don't know that. Nate vidu. Then what do they aspire for? Durashayaye bahir arta manina. Their minds are fixed on external goals pertaining to the mind and the senses, not the soul. And these can never be fulfilled. He says, durashaya, impossible to fulfill. You can think you're fulfilling for some time, but then it's taken away from you and you get older, and you can never really achieve what you're after on the material plane. So what happens? Andaya tandaya rupanayamana. Such persons are blind to the truth, and they're taught and instructed and guided by other blind persons. It's called andaya tandaya, the blind leading the blind. It's right from the Bible. And how can there be anything auspicious? Everybody remains in darkness. And everybody remains bound up very tightly by the material energy. So this is the opposite of transcendental faith. Faith has to be there. The faith is described in the 17th chapter in the modes of nature. You see, Krishna said at the end of the 16th chapter that for your auspicious life, you have to give up the gates, you have to escape these gates to hell, which are threefold: lust, anger, and greed. Tribadam, narakasebdam, dwaram, nashanam atmanah. Kama, krodha, tata lobas, tasmarita toyanta jait. He's just described the fate of the demonic. How they keep covered more and more, they get thrown into lower species, a very painful, dark life. We don't want to be demonic. So we're cultivating saintly qualities. That means mode of goodness and mode of pure goodness. So here he's describing the dangerous gates that can lead to this hellish life. To be too much controlled by lust and anger and greed, which we see is so prominent in the world today. So then he describes the benefit of escaping. So this is the alternative. Those who have escaped these three gates, they act for their own real welfare, for the soul. Acharati means they act, they perform acts. Atmanak shreyas, for the shreyas, the good of the soul. And tato yati param gatim, ultimately they go back to Godhead. But then he says the alternative. Time out for 1 second. Now, just for a slight interlude, 30 seconds to explain why we pour rather than just drink. Some of you may not realize why. Why not just take a sip of water like normal? Why do we try to pour like this? Have you seen the pouring? I didn't touch my lips to this cup. I pour. Yeah. The thing is, this is a very pure environment. As soon as you touch that cup with your lips, it's contaminated. It shouldn't be in the temple. You should go wash the cup and you wash your mouth out. But if you just pour, then it doesn't touch, see? So that's what Srila Prabhupada taught us. He was expert. He could pour from up here, remember? And go right in. Now this cup is not really designed for that. So sometimes it ends up over here. But anyway, so back to our verses. So now then he goes back, and this verse is always very telling. One who yak shastra vidim utsvija vartate kamakarataha nasa siddhim avapnoti nasukam naparam gatim. One who discards the injunctions of Shastra, Vidhi, the vidhi are the do's and the don'ts in the Shastra. There's always the rules and regulations. Yak Shastra Vidam Utsrija, discards them. Then what's the basis of our action? Yak Shastra Vidam Vartate Kamaka, and continues to act just on the dictations of lust or material desire, Kamaka. Nasa Siddham Avapnoti. Such a person cannot really get perfection. Nasukam Naparam Gatim, cannot attain happiness or the final goal. And then the last verse of the chapter gives a very essential instruction. Tasmat, whenever you see a verse beginning with Tasmat, therefore, he's winding up an argument. So he has a little fourth verse argument there. Tasmat chastra pramanamte karya bhavastito. One should take as evidence what we call pramana, as what one should do and what one should refrain from doing. After all, life is simply a series of choices. Doing one thing and not the other, going here and not there, choosing to call this person, not that person. Right? That's what our life is. So what's our guide? For most people, it's just their mind and some advertisement or something. It's nothing systematic. So here he says, no, except Shastra. Realize Shastra like Bhagavad Gita, as it is, for your guide as to what to do and what not to do. And having understood, one should actually act in such a way, guided by Shastra, as a matter of duty. Because oftentimes the things that Shastra says to do, we're not spontaneously attracted to do. Just like Arjuna didn't want to fight. But he accepted Krishna, Shastra personified, as his guide in the end. And he said, Kadashe Vachanam Tava, I will do as you say. So we have to also come to that point. And then we can attain perfection, happiness, and the supreme goal. Now the next chapter, 17, begins with Arjuna asking, well, for one who discards Shastra, as you described in the previous chapter, what is the quality of their faith? Is their faith in the mode of passion, goodness, or ignorance? Because as soon as you're not striving for the transcendental and the pure, then you're talking about the modes of nature, different modes. And Krishna describes, such people are in the modes of nature, and they have a certain kind of food that they eat, they have a certain kind of charity they give, everything is controlled by the modes of nature. Austerity, very instructive in that 17th chapter. So here in the 9th chapter, this is the most confidential knowledge, and Krishna is encouraging us to have faith in this chapter. In this, I'm telling you now, the king of knowledge, here he's speaking not to Arjuna, but he's speaking to us. So otherwise, that's what this verse is about, and then your faith will be in something else. You have to have faith. But if it's not the faith in this process, it'll be in some material process, and you'll stay bound up here. Mrityu sangsara vartmani. That's the basic point here. So, should we go on, or any discussion? Okay, text number 4. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakthamurtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavastitaha. By me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not perceivable through the gross material senses. It is said, Atakshi Krishna namadi nabave grayam indriyai sevan mukhe hi jiva dao swayam eva sporat yadaha. Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.234. Lord Sri Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, etc. cannot be understood by material senses. Only to one who is engaged in pure devotional service under proper guidance is he revealed. In the Brahma Samhita 538 it is stated, Premanjanatudita bhakti velochanena santak sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti. One can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, always within himself and outside himself if one has developed the transcendental loving attitude towards him. This verse is very poetic. He says, one who has anointed his eyes with the salve of pure love of God can see Sharma Sundar always within his heart. Thus, for people in general, he is not visible. Here it is said that although he is all-pervading, everywhere present, he is not conceivable by the material senses. This is indicated here by the word avyakta murtina. Avyakta simply means invisible. But actually, although we cannot see him, everything is resting in him. As we have discussed in the 7th chapter, the entire material cosmic manifestation is only a combination of his two different energies, the superior spiritual energy and the inferior material energy. Just as the sunshine is spread all over the universe, the energy of the Lord is spread all over the creation, and everything is resting in that energy. Yet one should not conclude that because he is spread all over, he has lost his personal existence. To refute such an argument, the Lord says, I am everywhere and everything is in me, but still I am aloof. For example, a king heads a government which is but the manifestation of the king's energy. The different governmental departments are nothing but the energies of the king, and each department is resting on the king's power. But still, one cannot expect the king to be present in every department personally. That is a crude example. Similarly, all the manifestations that we see and everything that exists, both in this material world and in the spiritual world, are resting on the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The creation takes place by the diffusion of his different energies. And, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vishtabhyaham idam kritsnam. He is everywhere present by his personal representation, the diffusion of his different energies. So there's one verse Prabhupada would always quote, Ekadesha stitasya agner, jyotsna vistarani yatha, padasya brahmana shaktis tathedam akilam jagat. Sometimes we have fire sacrifices, even in this temple. Maybe some of you have witnessed them. So the fire usually here, but let's imagine it's over in the corner there. So the corner of the fire is there, and Dharma Setu is there reading the mantras. We can see that fire all the way over here. And if it gets kind of big, we can even feel a little of the heat. So the energy of the fire, which consists of light and heat, is diffused throughout this room. And we can perceive it directly. But the fire is in one place. So it's similarly, the Supreme Brahman is situated in one place, but he's diffusing his energies everywhere. Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shuyate, Prabhupada always quote that. So, what are those energies? This is. You remember, some of you may remember, there's this threefold division of Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. This is a way of understanding the philosophy. Sambandha means understanding exactly like this. What is the situation of God? What are his energies? What is this nature? Who am I? Where do we fit in? What is our relationship? Sambandha means relationships. And this is really, our whole life is built on relationships. The first relationship is the soul with the body. We don't even think of it as a relationship, but it's the most important relationship. And then with other persons, those most intimate to us and others and so forth. And meanwhile, we're relating also to so many inanimate objects which form our consciousness. This is how we live our lives. So really, the Sambandha idea is basic to our existence. Now, understanding where God fits into that, and how everything that we're experiencing, including our own selves, we're simply energies of the Lord. And nothing is happening without some consciousness behind it. When we forget God and we try to separate this world from God, and we get into material science, we try to find the causes of everything within the material energy, but we can't find the real cause. It's just like if a child, right, sees a car moving, or even we just said, well, the car is moving down the street. No, there's a driver there. Everyone knows, right? And he's driving down the street. If there's no driver, the car just sits there, right? So similarly, without God behind it, the energy doesn't move. And it's described, we're just reading now in the 3rd canto, Kapila Deva is describing how creation takes place. And first is like all the ingredients are manifest, the different material elements, but nothing happens. The Mahatattvas, the whole conglomeration of material, nothing happens until Mahavishnu glances, and until he enters as Garbhodakshay Vishnu and Kshirodakshay Vishnu, and the super soul is there, within every heart and within every atom. In other words, without consciousness, without intelligence and guidance, nothing works in this material world. Nothing is working. It's not happening automatically. It's not nature that's doing it. Nature, in this chapter we're going to read in a few verses, Mayadhyakshena prakati suyate sachadasadam. Haitanani nakontaya jagaviparivartate. that with my supervision, Maya Jakshana literally means overseen by me. Material energy is working and its creation and maintenance, destruction are going on. But without my superintendence, nothing is going on. So that's the avyaktamurtina, the invisible form. Behind the veil of material energy, Krishna is there, and his intelligence. Now, he delegates. This is what any powerful person does. He delegates to the demigods, to his expansions. Krishna himself is playing in Vrindavan. That's why he's always standing in that threefold form. He's not working. He's getting ready to play. And that's all he wants to do. Just like any great, powerful, so-called powerful man in this world, he likes to spend as much time on the golf course. I'm not going to mention names. But the idea is that as much as possible, you delegate, right? And you may see a report from this and that. If you have trustworthy subordinates, once a week, or maybe at the end of the day, they'll tell you what happened in the business. Oh, very good. You sign your signature, and then you go back to your enjoyment. Well, Krishna is so skilled that he's always enjoying. And for the creation, maintenance, destruction of this world, he expands. First Balaram, Sankrishan, and finally Mahavishnu, and all of the, all the demigods, the Virat Rupa, the whole Megillah, as we used to say back in New York, is going on by his subordinates. Yes, he's so, his brain is so big, as Prabhupada said, that he knows, but he doesn't have to pay attention. He doesn't have to distract himself from what he really wants to do. So, but here he's trying to get us to have faith so that we'll begin the process. So he's saying, Jagat Avyaktamurtina, I'm all-pervading. Everything is within me, but I'm not there. I'm in Goloka Vrindavan. That's the whole idea. So then, now this very nice verse Prabhupada quotes, Atakshi Krishna Namani Nabhave Grayam Indriyai. That means that we cannot perceive or understand the significance of the name, etc. What is the name? Name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna with our present senses, Indriyai. But there's a process. Seva unmukhe hijivado. By serving Krishna, by beginning to serve Krishna, especially with the tongue, by chanting his name and tasting prasadam, then eventually, by the purification, Krishna decides to reveal himself. See, you can't force Krishna to reveal himself. There's no process that you can do outside of bhakti that's going to induce Krishna to reveal who he is. He stays behind that curtain. He only wants to be perceived by his devotees. In the 18th chapter, we'll read another famous verse, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tattvata. I can be known in truth. Now people can imagine something about God, but to know Krishna in truth, only by bhakti. And there he's talking about pure bhakti. He reveals himself to those who love him. That's really what's talking about. So that can only come, that's reiterated in this purport, by gaining the faith, practicing the Dharma, purifying the senses, mind, and intelligence, until Krishna reveals himself out of his mercy. Okay, any questions on this verse? Now Krishna seems to contradict himself in the next verse. It's very, very interesting. Mysterious. That's why he's guhya, very confidential. Nachamatstani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhuta brinnata bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Okay, I'm going to read this verse in purport, but we'll begin here on Monday, because I want to read from Krishna book, and it's almost 8. I was a little late. So then he says, and yet everything that is created does not rest in me. You notice the previous he says, everything rests in me, but here he says, they do not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation. For myself is the very source of creation. Purport. The Lord says that everything is resting on Him. Matstani sarvabhutani. This should not be misunderstood. The Lord is not directly concerned with the maintenance and sustenance of this material manifestation. Sometimes you see a picture of Atlas holding the globe on his shoulders. He seems to be very tired holding this great earthly planet. Such an image should not be entertained in connection with Krishna's upholding this created universe. He says that although everything is resting on Him, He is aloof. The planetary systems are floating in space, and this space is the energy of the Supreme Lord. But he is different from space. He is differently situated. Therefore, the Lord says, although they are situated on my inconceivable energy, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I am aloof from them. This is the inconceivable opulence of the Lord. In the Nirukti Vedic dictionary, it is said, Yujjite nena durgateshu karyeshu. The Supreme Lord is performing inconceivably wonderful pastimes, displaying his energy. His person is full of different potent energies, and his determination is itself actual fact. In this way, the personality of Godhead is to be understood. We may think of doing something, but there are so many impediments, and sometimes it is not possible to do as we like. But when Krishna wants to do something, simply by his willing, everything is performed so perfectly that one cannot imagine how it is being done. The Lord explains this fact. Although he is the maintainer and sustainer of the entire material manifestation, he does not touch this material manifestation. Simply by his supreme will, everything is created. Everything is sustained, everything is maintained, and everything is annihilated. There is no difference between his mind and himself, as there is a difference between ourselves and our present material mind, because he is absolute spirit. Simultaneously, the Lord is present in everything, yet the common man cannot understand how he is also present personally. He is different from this material manifestation, yet everything is resting on him. This is explained here as Yogam Aishwaram, the mystic power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Amazing. Okay, so we're going to start on that verse, text number 5, on Monday. Thank you for your attention. And now, let's continue with the attention on Krishna book. Let's see. I brought my other iPad today. Okay. So we are in the introduction to the rasa dance. And we're going to continue there. I think we may complete it tonight, I'm not sure. In the conditioned stage of the living entities, there are two kinds of results of fruitive activities. The conditioned living entity who is constantly engaged in sinful activities has suffering as his result. And one who is engaged in pious activities has material enjoyment as a result. In either case, material suffering or material enjoyment, the sufferer or enjoyer is conditioned by material nature. And ultimately, the material enjoyment also prolongs your suffering because you have to stay in this material world. The Gopi associates of Krishna who assembled in the place where Krishna was appearing were from different groups. I don't know if I mentioned this. This is very interesting. There's 4 groups. Most of the Gopis were eternal companions of Krishna. In other words, he brought them down from the spiritual world with him. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavi, in the spiritual world, the associates of Krishna, especially the Gopis, are manifestations of the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. What's the name of that pleasure potency? Ladhini. Ladhini. They are all expansions of Srimati Radharani. But when Krishna exhibits his transcendental pastimes within the material world in some of the universes, not only the eternal associates of Krishna come, but also those who are being promoted to that status from this material world. In other words, we can become gopis if we become pure enough, so we can get promoted. So in this particular case, those who were really being promoted, they were able to join. So some of the gopis who joined Krishna's pastimes within this material world were coming from the status of ordinary human beings. If they had been bound by fruitive action, they were fully freed from the reaction of karma by constant meditation on Krishna. Their severely painful yearnings caused by their not being able to see Krishna freed them from all sinful reactions, and their ecstasy of transcendental love for Krishna in his absence ended all their reactions to material pious activities. The conditioned soul is subjected to birth and death, either by pious or sinful activities. But the gopis who began to meditate on Krishna transcended both positions and became purified and thus elevated to the status of the gopis already expanded by his pleasure potency. All the gopis who concentrated their minds on Krishna in the spirit of paramour love became fully purified of all the fruitive reactions of material nature, and some of them immediately gave up their material bodies developed under the 3 modes of material nature. They didn't actually die, but they became completely pure. King Parikshit heard Shukadeva Goswami explain the situation of the gopis who assembled with Krishna in the rasa dance. When Parikshit heard that some of the gopis, simply by concentrating on Krishna as their paramour, became freed from all contamination of material birth and death, He said, "The gopis did not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They accepted him as a beautiful boy and considered him to be their paramour. So how is it possible for them to get freed from the material condition just by thinking of a paramour?" One should consider here that Krishna and ordinary living beings are qualitatively one. The ordinary living beings, being part and parcel of Krishna, are also Brahman, but Krishna is the supreme, Para-Brahman. The question is, if it is possible for a devotee to get free from the material contaminated stage simply by thinking of Krishna, then why should this not be possible for others who are also thinking of someone? Because everybody is Brahman. If one is thinking of a husband or son, or if anyone at all is thinking of another living entity, then, since all living entities are also Brahman, why are all those who thus think of others not freed from the contaminated stage of material nature? This is a very intelligent question, because there are always atheists imitating Krishna. In these days of Kali Yuga, there are many rascals who think themselves to be as good as Krishna, and who cheat people into believing that thinking of them is as good as thinking of Lord Krishna. I'm not going to say the name, but I got on a website of someone like that some time ago. It's crazy. Pariksit Maharaj, apprehending the future dangerous condition of blind followers of demoniac imitators, therefore asked this question, and fortunately it is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam to warn innocent people that thinking of an ordinary man and thinking of Krishna are not the same. Actually, even thinking of the demigods cannot compare with thinking of Krishna. It is warned in the Vaishnava Tantra that one who puts Vishnu, Narayan, or Krishna on the same level as the demigods is called a Pashandi, or rascal. On hearing this question from King Pariksit, Shukadev replied, "My dear king, your question is already answered, even before this incident." Because Pariksit wanted to clear up the situation, his spiritual master answered him very intelligently. "Why are you again asking about the same subject matter, which has already been explained to you? Why are you so forgetful?" A spiritual master is always in the superior position, so he has the right to chastise his disciple in this way. Shukadev knew that Pariksit asked the question not for his own understanding, but as a warning to the future innocent people who might think others to be equal to Krishna. Shukadev then reminded Pariksit about the salvation of Shishupal. Shishupal was always envious of Krishna, and because of his envy, Krishna killed him. Now, who was Shishupal supposed to marry that Krishna stole? Rukmini, his first wife, was betrothed to Shishupal by the brother, and Krishna just took her, just like a lion takes the spoils away from the jackals. That's the analogy, is there? So, because of his envy, Krishna killed him, but since Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shishupal gained salvation simply by seeing him. If an envious person can get salvation simply by concentrating his mind on Krishna, then what to speak of the gopis who are so dear to Krishna and always think of him in love? There must be some difference between the enemies and the friends. If Krishna's enemies could get freed from material contamination and become one with the Supreme, then certainly his dear friends like the gopis can achieve such freedom and much more. And they achieve a place in the spiritual world to engage eternally in loving relation with Krishna. Shishupal didn't get that. Besides that, in the Gita, Krishna is called Rishikesha. Who can say what that means? Rishikesha? Marcy, you know? Master of the senses. He's the Lord of all of our senses. Any person making a distinction between Krishna and Krishna's body is fool number one. Krishna is Rishikesh and Adhokshaja. These two particular words have been used by Shukadev. In this instance, Rishikesh is the super soul and Adhokshaja is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to the material nature. Just to show favor to the ordinary living entities, out of his causeless mercy, he appears as he is. Unfortunately, foolish persons mistake him to be an ordinary person, and so they become eligible to go to hell. Hare Krishna. We don't want to end on that note, so I'll give you a little sweet little poem. We're supposed to end on a sweet note. Uradi kutamuradi databangam, navajala dadikidanola sadangam, yuvati vadaya datamadanatatangam, pranamati yamana tatakitadangam. His flute emanates entrancing sounds for the cowherd girls whose love abounds for the clever, cloud-complexioned lord who's dancing upon the Kalindi shore. And on that note, Hare Krishna. Thank you for your attention. Now, for those who are interested, I'm going to be speaking tomorrow night in the lounge. After a long time. Yeah, because Balaram is gone and like that. So. Huh? What do you mean? On the lounge anymore? Oh, here, I know.
Did you sense I had a little more energy tonight, Nina?
You always have a lot of energy.
No, last night I hadn't eaten all day and I was kind of running on fumes.
Well, the chat, the voice was so beautiful.
Yeah, you're right.
It's such a beautiful chapter.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
My favorite.
I'm understanding it more. See, Prabhu, Dravida, I made it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yes, you did.
Oh, medal.
Can you do it next week?
Will there be someone then tomorrow for this? No, not tomorrow. It's just pushing around. Oh, okay. No.
Because they don't really have someone to watch it.
Yeah, okay. What time? But with some husband, you have to sign up for it.
Yeah, I can. You go
Krishna Krishna Gita Ganana Karnapatu Premamrita Vanidhi Veera Dhira Jana Priyo Tau Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Prabhu Premamritam Vanidhi Veera Veera Jana Priya Priya Karo Nemar Karamu Pujito Chaitanya Kripa Bharau Bhuvi Bhuva Bhara Vahan Taraku Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghujugo Sri Jiva पालक वंदे रूप सनातन रघुजुग श्रीजी भगवालक कृष्ण कीर्तन गान कीर्तन गान नर्तन परम प्रेम में कामनी वीर वीर जन प्रिय प्रिय करो निर्मा पूजितम तन्न कृपा भरौ श्री चैतन्य कृपा भरौ भुवि भुव मानव अंतरक वंदे रूप सनातन रघुजुग श्रीजी भगवालक विचार नहीं